Hello, and welcome to the Flix Forum Podcast, where each episode we check out a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today, we have a very special out of order episode, and this is on the recent release of the 2021 zombie heist film, The Army of the Dead. This is directed by Zack Snyder. It stars Dave Bautista, Purnell, Omari Hardwick, Anna de la Reguera, Theo Rossi, Matthias Schweighofer, Nora Arnezeder, Hiroyuki Sanada, Tig Notaro, Raul Castillo, Huma, Qureshi, and Garrey Dillahunt. I have stuffed a lot of those names up. I apologise. Huge cast, huge film that has been hitting the world quite largely the last week or so. And if you're listening in the past, then obviously, in the future, that this is in the past. I hope that you've seen this film because I will be spoiling this completely. This is a podcast that's going to discuss the film, scenes, characters, how it was made, all that sort of stuff. So if you did want to watch this film, please make sure you give us a pause now and come back a bit later on because I'm excited to talk about this film and this has been on the horizon as something that I was excited to see. So let's get into it and start off with the fast flicks where I'll do a quick summary of the film. And this one it's during a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas. There's a team of carefully selected mercenaries who break into the city in the hope of walking away with a large cash reward. That's the general consensus for this one. So what's the making of this one got to tell us? How has this one been put together? And this is a bit of a long and winding story, I guess, because Zack Snyder, he wrote the first draft for this about 10 years ago. And, he drew all his own storyboards for the film. He had a lot of thoughts prior to getting this one to the screen about what he wanted to do. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about here, Netflix actually, to coincide with the release of this film, put out a 28-minute making of on Netflix called Creating an Army of the Dead. So interesting if you enjoy the film to go back and see some of the things of how this was put together. But most of this stuff that I'm going to talk about comes from these 6 sections of this little mini documentary. The first part's called Deconstructing Vegas, and it talks about how they built the city. The second little part's about the Shamblers, and they discuss this content library that they had to put together for the movement of all the zombies. Then they talk about the Alphas, and the length and time it took to get the makeup done for a lot of these zombies. There's a zombie horse and a tiger, and they talk about this tiger, how they actually researched Carol Baskin's tigers from the Netflix hit show The Tiger King, if you're interested in that. And then finally they talk a bit about the cinematography, and Snyder discusses, he bought lenses to make this film off eBay, and he does mention this common theme that we hear over and over again about Netflix and his love of Netflix, because he said, Netflix heard about the film and said, sounds amazing, go do it. So he said they've been nothing but supportive and it's been an amazing experience. So I think Netflix, again, big tick of approval from Zack Snyder with this one. Prior to Netflix getting involved, Warner Brothers had the rights, but Netflix took over, started filming in the summer of 2019, a budget of about 90 million, so big budget for this one, and you can tell in the way that this one actually looks. There's certain scenes, there's this red camera package that they intentionally blew up during this car crash in the opening scene, and they had to go and find the SD card to get the footage, and that's a cool little story about this one, I guess. And Vegas plays a big part in this, and the crew, they couldn't gain access to a lot of the high rooftops in Vegas, so they scanned the actual strip. So this team came up with all these different plans, and they spent 12 days using like scissor lifts, drones, helicopter with a scanner, and they got all these above shots to digitally scan the city in, which is super cool when you watch this film. I guess the other sort of thing is that anything that the actors did touch was practical. So there are a lot of practical effects in this film as well as these visual ones that we speak about. And the guy that actually did the visual effects did the visual effects for Bird Box and Bright, and they're 2 Netflix films that we have covered on this show. So if you wanted to check those ones out, then feel free to head back into our catalogue. Snyder does have an interesting way of filming, and he chose to shoot this almost entirely with natural light, and I love the feel that he gets by doing this throughout this film. There's I guess there's a little story here where there was a visual gag from the film that had a male stripper, and there is a lot of Vegas-centric characters and connections that you see. There's Elvis impersonator zombies, there's people getting married, all that sort of stuff, and there was a male stripper, and he had this huge phallus that had a bite taken out of it by a zombie, but he thought that went a bit too far, so he took it out of the film. There's a lot of casino scenes in this too, and I think that they filmed in this old casino in Atlantic City called the Atlantic Club Casino Hotel. It's been closed since 2014. And they had to actually install some aircon units in there for filming because it was so derelict and nothing was working. But cool scenes that you can see in this film. In China, there are a couple of different titles for this. So in Mandarin, it's called Division of the Dead, and in Cantonese, it's called The Immortal Morning Army, which I don't mind that title. It's pretty cool. Cool little translation there. The other big news with this one too, and I'm going through this really quickly because there's heaps to say, but the other cool thing is that it's already got an animated prequel series that Netflix have greenlit coming out called Army of the Dead Las Vegas. I think it has the whole cast from this one doing the voice acting in that. And there's also a prequel film called Army of the Thieves, which is going to come out this year too. And I'm pretty sure that follows one of the characters that we see in this film too. So very, very interesting there. Last thing, there's a little bit of scandal too. There's a comedian, Chris D'Elia, who was cast in this film. Had a couple of allegations made against him in August 2020. So they actually replaced his character with a female, Tig Notaro, who plays, it's like a pilot, I think her name's Peters. And all that shooting was done with a green screen or, post the actual original production. So very, very cool little ability to do that with a film. Consensus for this one. Rotten Tomatoes, and obviously this is about a week within that film coming out. Rotten Tomatoes has it about 70% on 191 reviews, so that is fresh, and quite a few critics have seen that one. Audience has it at 76%, so a little bit higher, and that's on over 100 reviews. IMDb sits on a 6 out of 10 on over 57,000 reviews already, and Letterboxd it's on a 2.9 out of 5 on about 50,000 reviews as well. So this did have a small theatrical release a week before it hit Netflix. So the 14th of May 2021 hit screens in Spain, America, before Netflix on the 21st of May 2021. It took about 780,000 at the box office in that week, which is actually the best theatrical opening for a Netflix film. It actually tops Roma's 200,000 5-day total from 2018. So we have covered that film on this podcast too, if you wanted to check out Roma, but fairly good news there for Netflix. Mentioned before, filmed in Atlantic City, New Mexico, New Jersey, Las Vegas, LA, a whole bunch of places across America fill in for scenes for this. So I will head into my early thoughts for this, where I think that this was really good fun most of the time. It's exactly what you want from this style of film, and something that I'll probably watch again before the prequel film and the TV series comes out, because I did have a bit of fun with this one. And we'll talk about some characters. This has got a huge cast, as I reeled off at the start of the show. The main character is Scott Ward, played by Bautista. He's this burger flipping sort of guy that throughout the film, and I'm going to spoil a lot of the film through these characters, but throughout the film you work out that he had to kill his wife and the mother of his child because she became a zombie. It's a traumatic event for him, and especially because he can't stand looking at his daughter because it reminds him of his wife. And this obviously has created separation between him and his daughter, and could probably explain why he didn't mind going out and killing so many of these creatures. And that leads into his daughter, Kate, who, she doesn't hate him for killing the mum, but she hates him for not being there afterwards when she needed him. And she spends this time volunteering in this refuge almost, where she comes across this character to Lily the Coyote, who's like this leader, and she's able to go from this refuge into this blocked off land inside Vegas, and she's very helpful for this crew as they prepare to head inside to get this money inside this blocked off area of Vegas, because she knows the rules of the zombies inside, and she's able to help them navigate their way around, I guess, a little bit too. And then a few of the other characters, I guess, that are on this trip inside. We've got Vander O. I think I don't even know how to pronounce it properly. He's this guy with a buzzsaw. That's the main thing that you'd want to know, and he's very protective of this buzzsaw and quite funny about it. And I think he's struggling. I briefly mentioned he's struggling with the past of what they've had to do in the lead up to get to safety outside this border and kill lots of zombies too. There's this other character, Maria. She's probably the worst character. Didn't add anything at all. She's got really annoyed when Scott spent time with his daughter. They bring along a safe picker, Dita, and I think from memory that the prequel film that's coming out is based on his story before meeting these people. You've got Peters, who's the pilot, and I guess she's like the comic relief, but also the plot device to get them out of there once they get in there, because there's a helicopter on top of this building that she can fly out. As I mentioned before, great job considering like she was added in as a replacement. And makes mention, hates life, chase some cash, quite funny about it. very, very interesting. And the reason they're all in there, I guess, is because this Tanaka dude, he's this sort of evil villain, rich dude who gets the ball rolling to get all these people together, and possibly, the motives that you hear is that he doesn't necessarily want that money. He's after that zombie blood and what he can do with that zombie blood. So kind of a little bit of a evil sort of dude. There's a whole bunch of other characters that I'm probably just going to skip by because watch this film and you can, there's not it's a zombie film. So the development you get of these characters means very, very, very little. Zack Snyder, we mentioned, as the director here. He's got 25 directing credits. I don't need to tell you much about what he's done because I'm sure you know that, good start with Dawn of the Dead in 2004, did that big Spartan film 300 in 2006, did Watchmen's, done the DC world, Man of Steel, Batman, Superman, Justice League. This guy is going to have quite a long career, I think, in Hollywood. And I will now talk about some scenes that I liked in this one, I think. And I thought that the music throughout was excellent. The Vegas songs, the Elvis songs, Bad Moon on the Rise, Zombie by the Cranberries, the soundtrack throughout was excellent. Really, really enjoyed that. And then leading into that whole opening 15 minutes was so good. Just seeing this city covered in zombies, such a good start of the setup for this one. I think that the first time that they actually get inside this Vegas area that's been cut off from the world, just the sets were amazing. The vastness, the empty cars, the dead bodies, really, really cool. Coyote, this is the character that I mentioned before. I really like, there's a scene where there's this guard dude who's a horrible human being, shoots him, tells him how he's an abuser. I really, really enjoyed her ability to do that. It was a great standout scene, and I won't repeat the dialogue because there was quite some ordinary language in there from her. The walk through the room at the start, there's all these sleeping zombies. Really tense, great scene. These are just a couple of other little ones. There's a little mini side thing that, one of the characters says, imagine if we're in a loop and we're all destined for failure over and over again. Just watch that scene because it was so random, but I still was intrigued. There's this scene where they set off the traps to get towards the vault. They get this old zombie dude, and there's arrows, there's bullets, and then this closing door that just squishes him everywhere, which was quite funny. And then finally there's a scene with this zombie tiger, the death scene. Just watch it. Some things that weren't too great. I mentioned that tiger. The CGI of the tiger was pretty ordinary. Looked really poor compared to the rest of the effects. There's Zeus, who's like the head of the zombies, and he's got this queen. And there's a scene where he brings her body back, and they reveal that she had a zombie baby, and it goes from blue to red and then dies, and it just had no impact, no emotional touch to me. I don't know whether it was meant to be funny, but no impact at all. And the last thing is Maria, this character I mentioned before that added nothing, out of nowhere, she just says to Scott that, she thought they had a thing, just wasn't needed, just leave that out completely. Now, I'll quickly talk about the themes in this one. There's a big emphasis on the value of family through Scott and his daughter, and I think that's done really nicely through the beginning, through the middle, and through the end. So if you want to take anything out of this film, that's definitely something you could take. There's a brief touch on politics throughout, this idea about, this wall keeping people out of American cities, and this idea of coyotes leading them back in, and who's important in America now, because there's this commentary on, it's meant to be a free country, but it's not really. And then what's happening in the world today too. I just really thought, there's these temperature checks with thermometers on the head, and, quarantine camps and things like that. And I was just like, this is so relevant, even though this was produced in 2019. Just some things that really touch home to our 2021 world. And just this brief touch on political correctness that stood out to me, where the Japanese character Tanaka says, easy peasy Japanese, and the character's shut him down. No, you can't say that. And I just thought that was cool. So what do I take from this one? I think that possibly because the last 12 months, the movie schedule's been pretty clogged with uneventful drama pieces, and I think it was just nice to see this big budget film with lots of action, lots of fun, and this would have been excellent in the cinema if I had the opportunity to do that. IMDb, sometimes we jump on to IMDb to check out any characters or people that we recognize. Now, Tanaka is the Japanese villain that I mentioned. First scene I saw him up, that is the dude from Lost, and I was right. He was also in this TV show called Helix that I watched a little bit of, and thing that's probably most recent in my mind is that he plays Scorpion in Mortal Kombat film that came out this year, which is also worth checking out if you get the chance. And I'm going to wrap that one up now because I've enjoyed this. I've had a good chat. I've highlighted some really good scenes. I think that this delivered on what it set out to be. It's a zombie film. It's got outrageous situations. There's blood, there's guts, there's gore, there's lots of headshots, lots of kills. It's visually pretty good and gave me the characters that I wanted to see succeed, and I really can't wait to see some more stories from this universe, as long as they add a little bit to the heart and to the humor that they started with this one that probably could have gone a bit further. So I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Worth a watch if you just want something that's completely fun. That's all I can say. We have social media. I've got Twitter. I've got Instagram. Give us a follow, Facebook too. I just want to know, what's your favourite Snyder work? What's your favourite Snyder film? Because he does these big budget films, and I just want to see what are some other favourite Snyder ones that are out there. As usual, we will be back to our regular episodes throughout the week on a Wednesday. Got a huge catalogue of over 150, nearly 150 episodes. So if there's a Netflix original film that you've seen, we've probably done an episode and you might want to hear our commentary on it. So feel free to go through our catalogue, check it out. You can find it at all good podcast providers, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. We are there. So give us a Google search, and thank you for playing along today.